So, why are they asking me algorithms? I'm an application developer. It's coffee break, and let's talk about interview questions again. I was recently scrolling through some social media and read the same complaint again from colleagues engineers. I have 12 years of experience and built dozens of applications, but recruiters and hiring managers kept asking me theoretical questions so that I failed all the interviews. Then follows the usual conclusion: interviews are broken. Companies don't know what they need. Interviewers are disconnected from reality. Really? Let's talk about it. Because after hearing this argument many times, I think a lot of candidates are asking the wrong question. The question isn't, why are they asking theory? The real question is, why are so many experienced developers afraid of theoretical, fundamental questions? And before you get angry in the comments, hear me out. The biggest lie in the software engineering is that years of experience automatically translate into expertise. They don't. I've met developers with 15 years of experience who were absolutely machines. I've also met developers with 15 years of experience who effectively had 1 year of experience repeated 15 times. Same project, same architecture, same crude endpoints. In addition, which is sad, same mistakes and blind spots, limited learnings, not leaving comfort zones. Year after year after year. Look, if your entire professional life consists of adding fields to REST APIs and mapping DTOs into entities, there isn't actually much to discuss about your experience. At some point, the interviewer runs out of questions. Tell me about the challenge. Well, we added another endpoint. What was difficult? The field was optional. Amazing. 20 years in the industry and we have reached peak engineering. This is exactly why companies ask questions outside your immediate experience, because they are trying to understand whether there is anything behind the experience, which is in many cases is extremely limited. Depth, understanding, transferable knowledge, something, anything. My favorite phrase is, I never use algorithms at work. Of course you do. You just don't recognize them when you see them. Every time somebody complains about a slow query or about a performance, a computer science professor is giggling out there. Every time somebody wonders why a service suddenly collapses under load, this is all about algorithms. You don't need to sit there implementing red-black trees every day, but understanding complexity is the difference between building something that works today and something that still works 6 months later. And let's be honest, many developers don't want theory questions because they expose gaps in their knowledge and show they are lazy. Not because theory is irrelevant, because theory reveals the difference between memorizing a framework and understanding engineering. So the famous nobody uses that. Let's take Java. Every Java developer claims to know Java. Fantastic, let's discuss equals and hashcode contract. Half the room suddenly discovers an urgent meeting. The funny part is that the contract is literally documented. It's not hidden. It's not secret knowledge. It's right there. Yet countless experienced developers still get it wrong. And when they do, they create bugs that can survive in production for months. But sure, the interviewer is the problem, not the person who spent 10 years writing Java without reading the documentation. Concurrency is even worse. Concurrency questions are another source of endless complaints in engineering. Nobody asks me about race conditions at work. Correct, because the production system usually asks instead. At 3 a.m. on a Sunday afternoon under peak traffic, when every engineer on the team is suddenly staring at logs trying to understand why money disappeared, inventory went negative, or customers received duplicate orders. Concurrency bugs are among the hardest bugs to diagnose, and they are usually introduced by people who think theory is optional. The interviewer isn't checking whether you can recite a textbook. They're checking whether you're likely to create a 6-figure outage. That's a pretty reasonable concern. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Many candidates want interviews to consist entirely of discussions about their previous projects. Sounds fair, until you realize how easy that is to fake. Imagine a candidate says, I designed a payment platform. Okay, did you? Or were you one of 30 developers working on it? Did you make architectural decisions or attend status meetings? Did you design the solution or review pull requests? Nobody knows. Experience-based interviews are heavily dependent on storytelling. Theory questions are harder to fake. You either understand transactions or you don't. You either understand indexing or you don't. You either understand thread safety or you don't. You either understand complexity or you don't. The theory isn't replacing experience, it's validating experience. So the famous "I shouldn't have to study." This one is my personal favorite. I have 10 years of experience. I shouldn't need to prepare for the interviews. Why? Seriously, why? Normally, in life, you take time to get prepared for certifications, presentations, and university exams. At the job, you prepare for management reviews and for salary negotiations. But somehow preparing for an interview is considered offensive. If you are applying for a data analyst role, what do you expect? Python, SQL statistics, dashboards, metrics, maybe some machine learning basics. That's not a mystery. That's not random. That's literally the job. The idea that interview expectations are impossible to predict is nonsense. Most interview topics have remained almost unchanged for years. People simply don't want to do the homework. Then they call the process unfair. Companies hire for future problems. Candidates think companies hire for today's work. Companies hire for tomorrow's problems. Today, the system serves 10,000 users. Tomorrow, it serves 10 million. Today, everything fits into one database. Tomorrow it doesn't. Today, latency doesn't matter. Tomorrow it becomes a business emergency. Companies aren't buying your past. They're investing in your future. That's why they care about fundamentals. Fundamentals predict growth. Framework experience predicts familiarity. Those are not the same thing. Here is another uncomfortable observation. Every generation of engineers becomes emotionally attached to its framework, then acts surprised when the framework becomes irrelevant. 20 years ago, people were experts in technologies nobody talks about anymore. 10 years ago, different technologies. Today, Spring Boot. Tomorrow, something else. The framework changes. The principles survive. A developer who understands databases, concurrency, networking, distributed systems, and complexity can learn new framework surprisingly fast. A developer who only knows the framework often struggles the moment the abstraction leaks. And eventually, every abstraction leaks. Every single one. Are there bad interviews? Absolutely. Some interviews are terrible. Some companies ask ridiculous questions. Some interviewers enjoy showing off. Some processes are completely disconnected from the actual role. That happens. But let's stop pretending that every theory question automatically belongs in that category. Sometimes the interviewer isn't testing trivia. Sometimes they are testing whether the candidate understands the profession. And that's where the real discomfort starts. Because many people don't want an evaluation of their understanding. They want validation of their experience. Those are different things. Experience tells me what you've done. Theory tells me whether you understand why it worked. And if you have to choose between somebody who memorized Spring Boot annotations and somebody who understands engineering principles, I'm taking the second candidate every single time, even if they have fewer years on their CV, because frameworks expire and fundamentals compound. If you have a contrary opinion, share it in the comment. If you like the video, like the video. See you next time.